Okay, well, hello everyone. It's nice to see everybody. So today's an important milestone because it concludes our weekly interactions. Since now we've established and formalized the project goals. And thank you all for your help. I know you guys have worked really hard on this. After today, we'll be moving on to the next phase, which is called design development. And that's where we bring in other experts to help us get into the weeds with mechanical, electrical, plumbing, civil engineering, all that fun stuff. So today we wanted to present to you the schematic design for the new school, and which is the culmination of all the hard work we've been talking about for over the last several months. And to begin, I just wanted to quickly review the design goals that we established together. So number one, the new Sandia Base Elementary School should reflect your community values. It should fit in and speak about who you are. Number two, it should inspire learning. Not only should it have all the things that science has proven to improve learning, like ample natural light and good acoustics and good thermal comfort, but it should also create opportunities to support the way you teach your kids. And number three, it should balance the need for robust security with a non-imposing and welcoming environment. And the fourth one is it should celebrate the hope and the carefreeness, if that's a word, of just being a kid. And so you'll remember this word map exercise that we did together a while back. That was an attempt to just sort of distill what are your values, the values for the school. And it was clear that Albuquerque's landscape and our culture is an important part of who you are, of course, as well as your established history on Kirtland Air Force Base. And the base is on, in Albuquerque because of its geography and its landscape, and the honor and integrity of that's synonymous with the U.S. Air Force is obviously an integral part of who you are as well. And then finally, and probably most importantly, your commitment to creating a sense of community is obvious, and it's a sort of an overarching principle that you all have truly created a quote-unquote family here. So the design needs to talk about that. So we as architects pondered this question a lot, and essentially it's how do we connect these things? What's the link between childhood, education, Albuquerque, and Air Force? And just as a generator for design, we latched onto this notion of flight. We felt like this sort of enigmatic idea or word. It could be a noun or a verb. It was the thread that sort of ties these things together for us. And so the sky and the universe have always been the ultimate goal, right? Whether it's reaching for the stars or touching the sky, the heavens, the cosmos, we have this inherent need to be closer, to understand it, to be a part of it. And which is why mankind has always had this preoccupation with flying, with myths, and men have dreamed of flight, including Leonardo da Vinci all the way to the actual culmination of it with the Wright brothers. And the notion of flight is a metaphor for so many positive attributes in education, as well as any other thing in life that requires a leap of faith. And it represents growth and wisdom, enlightenment, power and freedom, just to name a few things. And from the perspective of a child, it's more, flight represents adventure and wonder and magic. And so in this slide, Peter Pan and the Magic Carpet and Dr. Seuss are all really fantastic examples of this. So for us, this image sort of embodies what the architecture is striving towards, which is to inspire the sense of childhood wonder, while through the notion of flight, if you will. So with this concept in mind, you'll see how the architecture continually references back to this idea, and we borrowed ideas from aviation and used materials and light and space and flow and all those things to make the building fit into our desert landscape, but also to abstract sort of the aspirations of rising above the clouds, if you will. So Nate's going to expand on this idea a bit more, beginning with sort of the overall site design.
Thanks, James. Hey, everyone. So going back to this idea of airplanes and then how they are grounded into a site really got us looking into runways, and just because they're very dynamic and they have these interesting compositions and layouts that are really kind of unique and to each individual airport. As you can see here, they're all different and they all have different constraints of their site, and those site constraints kind of lay out what the runway can do and where the airplanes come in and take off. And so we really latched onto this in the design of the site and how we can lay out the way that the students and the staff and the visitors kind of interact with the site, and how they enter and leave, and how the spaces get placed around those areas of circulation, because that's really what a runway is this big circulation path that airplanes follow, and it's where they come in and then they leave, and it's just kind of this grounding of these ideas of flight and exploration and adventure. And then as we go into that, there's also kind of these more detailed and intricacies to these runways that we try to bring out through the rest of the school. You see this idea of wayfinding and these runways, which are very complicated, but they have these very unique and easy to understand pathing lines that allow the separation between like small cars and these big giant airplanes. And then just this easy way of knowing where to go by following these lines. And so trying to utilize that to bring this idea of wayfinding so that students know where they're going or visitors know where to go, and drawing that all from kind of this idea of aviation. And so bringing those ideas of flight into a kind of more intimate and understanding for the students. And so here's kind of the site a little more developed than what we showed you last week, but we'll just do a quick brief overview of kind of the entrance sequence. So if you're coming in from the south, as staff and visitors would, you'd go in and you have the staff and visitor parking lot to the south. And then you also, as you kind of progress through this site, you also have the parent pickup drop off. So then they can drop the students off in this separate loop from the main traffic. And then there's, as you go up, you get into kind of the main site where all the play areas and play fields are. And then there's also the west access, which has parking for the kitchen services and a loading dock for deliveries. And then also the bus loop branches off of that. So then the students exit there and they have their own separate drop-off place where they're separate from vehicular traffic, and then they can kind of be guided from there into the school or to the playground, depending on whatever they need to be or wherever that you guys need them to be. But then, so then that's the kind of overall site. Then you can start seeing in our kind of design, we have these radiating paths and these very distinct circulation areas that the students and the staff can go. And then in between all those, we've inserted these blocks of programming, which are, for example, the artificial turf field or the third and fifth playground, or the fourth and fifth playground, and the first to third basketball courts. And then also these other kind of more niche programs like an outdoor teaching space, be that for gardening or for just learning about the New Mexican environment and the plants that grow here or other sort of things like that. And then also these berms and this amphitheater, which kind of can help center and provide additional learning opportunities or play opportunities, while also kind of grounding the whole site into this idea of a runway. And then that these circulation paths, which mimic this idea of a runway, we try to bring in these ideas of wayfinding. And this is a fairly early interpretation, kind of more of a design concept as opposed to the actual implementation. But as you can see, when students get off the bus, there may be a line showing them this is the way to school, this is where you're going in the morning, or after school they find that line, they know yellow's to bus, so then they can take that and they follow that to the bus. And then there's also these other lines that will kind of guide them to where they may go. So if you're a first to third grader, you follow a blue line to that playground, or if you're going to go play soccer during PE on the big field, you follow the orange line, and then or red for the older students. And there's kind of this almost endless possibilities of helping demarcate where and how students are circulated through the site and guided through the site. And so that gives them this kind of sense of being a part of the site and using it as a mode of transportation through. And then it's also kind of fun because the student then becomes like an airplane. They are, or a pilot, and they're navigating these runways before they get to their destination, or as they get to the playground, then they get to take off and start exploring and having an adventure in the play area. And that's kind of like, I mean, once you fly, you staring out the window of the airplane, and as soon as you take off, you just like lift off. And so then that's where a lot of this idea ties back in. And you can see us try to begin to take this as we go through the rest of the plan, this idea of how we can get these ideas of aviation, and tying it back to the students and how they learn and will develop.
Yeah, and so expanding on what Nate said and going inside of the building, you all are very familiar with the arrangements of the departments and functions, so I won't spend too much time on that, but there's a few things that we wanted to point out that sort of echo this overarching idea that the architecture is a tool to help you teach. And so, for example, the main entry is sort of pulled in to direct flow and funnel circulation so that it's intuitive and highly visible from the administration area. We're hoping, as Nate said, to use these ideas of color and graphics for wayfinding even inside of the building possibly. And then we've talked about how important it is for spaces to be able to grow and shrink to fit the needs a teacher may have or to host large events. So as we've talked about before, the ability of the cafeteria and gym, for example, to just be a huge space actually for large events. But we've also introduced the dry erase operable walls into the plan, which we hadn't done before, even though we had talked about it. And right now we're showing one per grade, which is sort of dependent on our budget and everything. But ultimately it's great because it means that you could have a double-sized classroom. And again, lots of these spaces, we know how important it is to have different scales. So as we've talked about, just expanding these corridors into little breakout areas means that your introvert kids or your small groups can study or have individual study sessions. And then we try to make all spaces have some connection to nature, and that's via views or looking into the tot lot, for example. We just found that having a window next to any of these spaces means that they get used, but also that they're very attractive and magnetic. And then And then lastly, the great thing about having a courtyard building like this is that the building acts almost as its own sort of wall or barrier, so that instead of having like bars on your windows or, you know, gates and fences, we still have a fence around the property, but it's not like right on the building. And so the building itself is sort of like this protective move, if you will. So, and then just quickly, we wanted to show you how the circulation speaks also about this design concept. So we sort of shaded it in gray here, and when you extract it like this is called a figure ground diagram. You see it in art and architecture, and it's just the negative space, and it helps you visualize what the volume is. And you know, if you abstract that and soften this shape, you know, it's something we see in nature, where water and wind contract where greater speed is necessary, or expand where things need to slow down, like these rivers. And so you could see this same idea where this is the lobby, where it opens up, compresses where you need people to move through, it opens up again. So again, it's just sort of pushing this idea of flow. Second floor, same ideas, wayfinding, flexible spaces, and connections to nature wherever possible.
So I'll talk a little bit about the exterior design and how we pulled in those ideas to the elevations of the building. As James touched on earlier, it was important to us that the architecture echo the values of your community, the honor and respect of the Air Force, the geography and culture of Kirtland, and the New Mexico landscape as a whole, and also that the new school building inspired learning, wonder, and curiosity. So these images shown here were used as a springboard to define the material palette of the building. The 5-color palette you see on the lower left there, that was those colors were inspired by the seal for the United States Air Force, which those colors, when used sparingly, can really evoke the kind of natural colors we found here in our Albuquerque landscape as well. Plus the blue and the gold matches your mascot colors, which is a bonus. And finally, using the idea of this wonderment of flight again as a metaphor for the dreams of students sort of reaching for the sky and dreaming of doing greater things. This next slide here will show you how we incorporated that palette into the building, just a close-up here view. And the masonry base itself kind of grounds the building to the earth and the site, while the white, airy metal panel top sort of floats slightly above. And then the modules of those metal panels, of those white metal panels, are inspired by a paper airplane, which is like the first true, foray into experiencing flight that a child takes. And you'll also see in later slides how we incorporate this paper plane idea and other abstractions of flight into the rest of the building as well. And then just as the material palette strives to reflect its surrounding and its users, it's also equally important, like James mentioned earlier, we balance that security with a feeling of welcoming. And so this next slide here is the main entry from the south parking lot. And we tried to design it in a way that feels very inviting, yet still provides the necessary security. The way we angled the walls in toward the entry doors and the way the canopy slopes down, we feel kind of draws you in as a visitor. And then once through those entry doors and the security vestibule, the space opens up again on the interior with a light-filled, double height foyer that we'll show you a little bit later. And let me just orient you guys real quick on this. So we're in the south parking lot. That's the main entry. To the left there is the kindergarten wing, and then that cantilevered mast there. That's the library beyond, just to kind of get your bearings. And then I'll show you the next slide here, which is looking at the east side of the building. So right in front of the parent drop-off loop. You can see the balcony for the teacher's lounge, and below that the patio, which is right outside of the teacher's workroom. the cantilevered volume we talked about earlier, the library, it's going to have a large expanse of glass facing east, to get those dynamic views of the Sandias. But anytime we have those large expanses of east or west facing glass, we have to control the sun's rays for both heat and glare. And the way we're planning to do that is on this next slide is by using this semi-translucent tensile fabric structure, once again inspired by the paper airplane. So you guys have probably seen this. It's like Denver Airport has it, but it's a tensile fabric that's somewhat translucent, and it'd be kind of folded in the shape of a paper airplane. And this will help again modulate that heat gain you get from the east and glare, which is a problem in the library. It'll help with that, but we'll still maintain all those views. We not only I think this idea can inspire wonder and curiosity from a child's perspective, but we also love how this idea of flight again also ties back into Kirtland and a lot of your parents' involvement in the Air Force. Zooming back out here, we're just showing you the building in context. We're super excited about this kinder courtyard space that Nate talked about earlier. That large tree you see is an existing cottonwood that our design was able to keep, and it's a really large tree. So we're pumped up about that because it takes years and years for a tree to grow that much shade and visual interest. And then as we move into the courtyard on the next slide, you'll see a view looking in the courtyard here. And this is looking east, okay? And to the right is the kinder wing, and on the right we punched these circular windows that we thought were fun and playful for those kinder age children, and kind of evokes those circular windows you see in older airplanes. And those would be pushed in sort of a thickened wall so that kids can sit inside there, and read or relax, kind of in the sill of those thick windows. And then again, we're sitting under that large tree here, by the way, this view. And then beyond there, you'll see that large glassed area with the kind of a scrim area. That looks into that foyer that we're going to talk about later. But we wanted this space to not just be the kinder tot lot. We also wanted it's such a nice space, we wanted it to be able to use by all kids. So there's a wall beyond there that we kind of divided off another area that we'll show you in the next slide that kind of creates another nice outdoor learning space that other students can use. And it's got a retaining wall that kind of retains a berm, a real gentle berm that faces a widened concrete area that, and it's covered and with its back to this glass wall here. And we just imagine like outdoor performances can take place out here. And then just beyond this, you see that block wall there. And poking up there where James is pointing the cursor, we designed some amphitheater style seating. So, it could be like an outdoor classroom right there. And the art room opens out directly onto it. And then back further beyond there, that's looking into one of those breakout spaces that James was talking about earlier. And that breakout will just be able to open right out onto this under a covered canopy for outdoor learning, eating, what have you. And then last thing on this is I'll just talk about the way we're modulating the sun here on this side where it faces west is, again, this idea of kind of a folded airplane, but in a more filigree kind of pattern that I think Elliot will touch on a little bit more.
All right, yeah. So those themes of air travel continue on the interior with patterns reminiscent of birds or planes flying in formation. And then again, that wayfinding strategy that Nate described earlier continues to the interior. You can see a precedent image we have in the lower right of how we might like to do that kind of striping on the concrete floor. And then also on the interior, that same color palette is going to appear again against various tones of white and gray that are meant to invoke an idea of clouds. yeah, as Dean mentioned, when you enter the school, you're funneled into that secure entry, which sort of compresses the space. And then once you enter the school, that space opens up again to this double height volume. And it's filled with natural light, which is modulated through materials of various opacities and tones. And for instance, you have this screen on the left hand, which is folded steel, and that modulates that harsh Western light coming into the space, and also casts shadows that change throughout the day with the seasons. The acoustic ceiling baffles control noise and diffuse light from several large skylights. And then here again, you can see on the floor that wayfinding splitting into color-coded lines based on grade level or important spaces. We think it could be fun to direct a visitor to take the green line to the kindergarten or something like that. And then finally on the wall to the right, you have a series of painted Mustangs that sort of add a sense of motion and activity to the lobby while reinforcing school pride and identity. And then the hallways, as mentioned before, throughout the school widen up to these open gathering spaces in order to provide relief to what otherwise might be a dark and long corridor. And also here on the second floor, those hallways are punctuated by light shafts that further brighten and enliven the space. Also here we have these exterior cubbies that are surrounded by pin boards, which are those patterns of triangles, kind of bring some more color to the space and also allow for the hanging of student work.
They also double, as acoustic treatment, so they won't be so echoey, as well as the ceiling baffles, the continuation of those. And we're really excited about having those sort of more loungy breakout study areas at the ends of these hallways. Again, look, this particular view, you'll probably see the volcanoes from up there, and also the glass. If it's like a translucent white, it could be used as a dry erase material as well. So we see, the whole school is just a tool again for you to teach. Try to really make circulating through it very intuitive. And the other cool thing about the colors, excuse me, that we like is there's almost like this graduation to the next color, if you will. So when you're in third grade, you go up to the blue line or the yellow line or whatever it may be. So there's something really exciting about that. So, yeah, we hope you're as excited about this as we are. We think it could be really beautiful. And again, these are just representations of it, right? The real building will be much more beautiful than these, but we think they sort of depict the feeling that we're trying to evoke with it. And yeah, so we'd love to hear your questions and comments. Here's an amazing poem that we found that sort of summarizes that airplane and paper airplane specifically too, and just how it leads to this dreaming of doing better with your life. So yeah, let us know if you have any comments or questions.
One of the things that stood out to me is that I really loved is that the way that you guys did the triangles on the outside that kind of looks like paper airplanes, it also mimics a little bit the Air Force Chapel at the Air Force Academy.
That's so true.
I thought that was really cool. We went there a couple of years ago, and it's just an amazing thing to be inside of. But a lot of our families come from Colorado Springs or gone to the Air Force Academy, and I thought that was the first thing that came to my mind when I saw the building. Is you think of the shape reminds you of that, and just invokes the Air Force so much without having that just kind of hitting you in the face. It's not just like Air Force right in your face, right. But it was such a great way to kind of bring that in and remind those families who know that architecture. It'll remind them of that.
Yeah, we appreciate that comment because we were trying to be subtle, even though we're telling you like what the design concept was, right? We're hoping that people don't really know it's an airplane or a paper airplane or anything. It's just this subtle even with the metal scrim on the other side, it's just like an abstraction of flying birds or planes or whatever, you know. So we appreciate that, and also the connection to a bigger thing than just us.
All I can say is I wish I had recorded this presentation because it was beautiful. And I'm not somebody, the staff knows that I'm not somebody who gets a little emotional, but this is beautiful. I'm not thinking I'm not going to retire because I don't want anybody else in my pretty school. It is absolutely gorgeous, just in design and concept. And I think you guys hit it the nail on the head. I mean, to represent our school community, to represent the Air Force, plus the beauty of New Mexico and Albuquerque. I don't know what else to say. It's beautiful. Thank you.
And I really love that you guys kept that tree. I think that's the tree that's near the gym.
Right.
And I feel like I've spent so many years underneath that tree with children. They just gravitate to that area because it's like the one shade on our playground. And they're always under it and they're always there. And when I saw that image from under the tree of the tot lot, it just felt like that's Sandia base. That's our home. Because I spent so much time under that tree. So I thought that was really great that if you can try to, if we're able to keep it, it's such a wonderful thing.
Yeah, thank you guys. Those are some really wonderful comments. We really appreciate it. And again, it's not just us. We feel like just the team that we've had together with you guys has been so nice. Like everyone's been so nice, and it's flowed going back to the concept, I guess, really well with us together. So we really appreciate all of that.
Well, I also, it's beautiful. This was a beautiful presentation. I had the same reaction as Jude, that I wish that I had recorded it, but hopefully, I would love to be able to give this to Casito as well and see how he would, have him use as he wants. But maybe, if he wants to talk with you all, that would be, I can just have him get in touch with you and you can see if he wants anything else. But,
yeah, I don't know. Would this be helpful for the presentation that he's putting together for that meeting in February?
It might be premature just because at this point we're still trying to say we're replacing the school.
Okay.
I don't know.
Once again, this is beautiful, guys. This is just exciting. Those were the thoughts that were in my head. Was one, I wish I would recorded your beautiful words. I mean, it was just the presentation itself. And the way you incorporated, the flight and New Mexico all into this. And then I just kept thinking, I'm not going to retire. I'm not going to let anybody else be in my school. So sorry, guys, I'm here forever.
I totally agree, and I'm with you with the retirement because I'm getting close and this looks great. I don't know if I'm going to want to retire, but I just think it's so inviting for all these families that are coming, for our military families when they get there. It's just going to be such a great inviting space. So thank you so much for all of your hard work. It looks amazing. And it did almost make me get a little bit of a teary-eyed because it just, we just can't wait to be back in school and then to see this school. We're ready. We want it tomorrow. So, so thank you.
Thank you, Angela.
I just want to add that it is just so breathtakingly beautiful, and I love that our colors correspond with the Air Force because it's just so smooth and beautiful.
Thank you, April.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, we appreciate all the wonderful comments. That was really nice.
Well, we appreciate your beautiful vision, and we appreciate everything you guys have done to help us get here. And we know it's going to just be amazing. Thank you. We appreciate you guys.
Thanks.
Okay, you guys know that this means we're going to get more military families. Woohoo!
They need to reconsider that Space Force, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you all.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
We are so excited. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.